The order came without warning. No press conference, no diplomatic statement, just a single classified command that moved through the chain like an electric current, and within minutes one of the most powerful weapons ever built by human hands began to wake up. The USS Theodore Roosevelt, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, 1,000 feet of steel, jet fuel, and firepower, home to over 5,000 sailors, pilots, and soldiers. And on this day, every single one of them had one job: get to sea, get to the strait, and be ready for anything. Iran had made its move, a strike on an American oil tanker in the Persian Gulf, deliberate, calculated, and designed to send a message. But the message Washington sent back was not written in words. It was written in wake trails and missile smoke. Here is what actually happened when America responded. The moment the deployment order reached the Roosevelt, the ship transformed. What had been a controlled, organized floating city became something else entirely, a machine shifting into combat mode with terrifying efficiency. Sailors who had been eating, sleeping, running drills, they dropped everything. Within the hour, the pier was chaos in the best possible way. Organized chaos, military chaos, the kind that wins wars. Troops moved in columns across the gangways, gear strapped tight, weapons secured, eyes forward. Supply crates were loaded by the dozen. Ammunition, rations, medical supplies, spare parts for aircraft that hadn't even been damaged yet, but would be. Because the men and women on that pier had done this before. They knew what was coming. They planned for it before it arrived. Down in the belly of the ship, on the lower decks where the light is always artificial and the hum of the reactor never stops, teams were already moving crates into their designated compartments. Fuel lines were being checked, hydraulic systems tested. The Roosevelt was not just a ship, it was a city preparing for siege, except this city was the one doing the besieging. In the anchor room, sailors hauled in the heavy chain links one by one, the windlass grinding under the weight of iron and seawater. The mooring lines, thick as a man's torso, were cast off from the bollards, coiled and stowed. The massive cargo ramp on the ship's side groaned as it lifted, then locked shut with a sound like a vault closing. The chief petty officer in charge of the forward section walked the length of the deck, checked every fitting, every latch, every seal, and then picked up the radio. Bridge, forward section secured. The ship is ready to move. 4 words that changed everything. The harbor tugs moved in like small, faithful dogs beside a lion, pushing, pulling, guiding 200,000 tons of nuclear warship away from the pier with a precision that still seems impossible. The carrier slid through the harbor channel slowly and deliberately, the water parting around its hull like the ocean itself was making way. And then the tugs fell back, cast off their lines, and the Roosevelt moved under its own power, out past the breakwater, out past the channel markers, out into the open water of the Gulf. Behind it, the formation was already assembling. Cruisers, destroyers, submarines running below the surface where no satellite could see them. Each vessel took its assigned screening position around the carrier, a defensive constellation of firepower stretching for miles in every direction. These were not ships sent to observe. They were sent to strike. Armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles, surface-to-air systems, anti-ship weapons, and enough combined firepower to end a war before a formal declaration could be signed. And on the flight deck of the Roosevelt, the real work was just beginning. The deck crews moved between the aircraft like surgeons, methodical, focused, speaking the language of men who understand that a missed step does not mean a failed inspection. It means a pilot does not come home. Air-to-air missiles were lifted onto wing pylons and locked into place. Air-to-ground munitions were loaded, armed, and fitted with guidance kits that could put a warhead through a specific window of a specific building from 30,000 feet. Every arming pin was checked. Every red safety flag accounted for. Every electrical connection is tested twice. The F-35 Lightning IIs were the first to begin their power-on sequences. The most advanced combat aircraft on Earth, stealth airframes, sensor fusion, the ability to see the entire battlefield and share that picture with every ship, every aircraft, every commander in the theater simultaneously. The pilots climbed into the cockpits, and the canopies sealed over them. Engines spooled up, the turbine whine rose into a roar. Ground crews watched the exhaust nozzles, listened to the acoustic signature of each engine, cross-referenced the numbers appearing on diagnostic screens with the numbers that should appear, and signed off, one aircraft at a time. Control surfaces deflected through their full range. Radar systems activated, swept the horizon, and returned clean. Navigation systems aligned to the satellites overhead. The F-35s that passed were pushed to their standby positions, locked, loaded, and waiting. The F-18 Super Hornets lined up behind them, bigger, louder, meaner, in a different way. The backbone of American carrier aviation for a generation, proven in combat over Iraq, over Afghanistan, over Syria. Pilots who had already seen war were climbing back into cockpits to see it again. Because that is what they trained for. That is what they signed up for. And on this day, in this part of the world, they were exactly where they were supposed to be. The catapults were being readied. The jet blast deflectors, massive steel panels that rise from the deck behind each aircraft, were tested, raised, and locked. The catapult shuttles that would accelerate each jet from 0 to flying speed in under 3 seconds were inspected and charged. The deck officer took his position. The pilots pushed to full military power. The engines screamed. The first catapult fired, and the war began. The jet shot off the bow like it had been fired from a cannon. 1 second, it was on the deck. Next, it was climbing hard, banking east, afterburners cutting 2 white lines across the sky above the Persian Gulf. Before the sound had even finished echoing across the water, the next aircraft was already rolling into position. Catapult reset. Pilot ready. Power up. Fire. The rhythm was relentless. 1 aircraft launched. The next taxi drove forward. The deck crew moved with the mechanical precision of people who have rehearsed this moment so many times it no longer feels like urgency. It feels like breathing. Launch. Reset. Launch. Reset. The air wing fed itself into the fight at a rate that no enemy radar controller, no Iranian air defense commander, no general sitting in Tehran could have fully prepared for. Because this is what American carrier aviation looks like when it is not holding back. While the fighters climbed toward Iranian airspace, something else was happening on one of the escort cruisers cutting through the water 3 miles off the Roosevelt's port side. The vertical launch system hatches, rows of them, running down the forward deck like the keys of some enormous instrument, began to open. One by one, quietly, without ceremony. Then the first Tomahawk fired. A column of white smoke erupted from the open cell, and the missile rose vertically into the sky. Slow at first, almost gentle, like it was deciding. And then it tipped over, and the engine pushed it flat and fast and low toward the horizon. Then the second cell fired, then the third. Each missile climbs, orienting and disappearing in a different direction toward a different target. Iranian radar installations, command and control facilities, air defense batteries that had been tracked, cataloged, and marked for destruction weeks before this moment ever arrived. The Americans had not improvised this. They had planned it. Every target in the fire mission had a name, a coordinate, a designated weapon, and a calculated time of impact designed to land before Iranian commanders could react, relocate, or retaliate. This was not anger. This was architecture. 40 minutes after the first Tomahawk left its cell, an F-18 Super Hornet crossed the Iranian border at low altitude, moving fast, systems hot. The pilot's helmet-mounted display painted the ground below in thermal detail. Iranian military vehicles, equipment, defensive positions. Everything the targeting pod could see, the pilot could see, and everything the pilot could see was already inside a crosshair. The first weapon was released cleanly from the wing station. The pilot held the aircraft steady, watched the guidance system track, and the munition found its target with the kind of precision that makes the word airstrike sound too casual for what actually happened. Then the pilot banked, reacquired, selected the next target from the list, and released again. Methodical, unhurried. The way a professional does a job is the one they have trained their entire career to perform. Target by target. Coordinate by coordinate. The assigned list has been shortened. When the last weapon left the aircraft, the pilot turned west, back toward the Roosevelt, back toward the deck and the arresting wire and the debrief and the rearm, because this was not the end of the mission. This was the end of one sortie. The deck was already turning the next aircraft around. The catapults were already charged. The next pilot was already strapped in. Iran had struck an American tanker to send a message. America had answered with 5,000 sailors, a nuclear-powered carrier, a full strike wing of the most advanced fighter jets on Earth, and cruise missiles that do not miss. The Strait of Hormuz had changed forever, and the world was watching.